55 of the Inland Empire Workers' Compensation Lawyer Livestream podcast. My name is attorney Alexander Napolin. I'm joined by my co-host, attorney George Ibuado. We're workers' compensation lawyers in the Inland Empire, and today we are discussing mileage reimbursement. So if you're out there and you've been injured at work, your employer and their insurance company are required to provide you with a reimbursement for driving to and from the doctors. We're going to discuss that in this episode today and what you need to do to make sure that you get paid this mileage reimbursement. So stick around to the end of the discussion so that we can share a special trick that you can implement to get this mileage reimbursement because you need it, because it's gas money to get to and from your doctors. But remember, the information that we're sharing with you is general in nature only. It's not legal advice. If you need legal advice, if you're out there, you're worried about your mileage, you have concerns about your mileage, dial our injury helpline. That's 844-984-8414, and we'll give you a free consultation. So with that said, let's get into the discussion. Let's teach you what you need to know about mileage reimbursement. George, what's the legal basis for this mileage reimbursement that I've been discussing?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know that they get their mileage reimbursed. Maybe they were told that by a friend or a colleague or the doctor even, letting them know that they are entitled to get mileage reimbursement for any medical treatment that they get, right, for their workers' compensation claim. That comes from the Labor Code Section 4600. We'll talk about that right now. But I think that I want to start off by saying that this is one of those benefits that's available to you. But you won't get it unless you actually proactively request it and follow through with what you need to do in order to obtain that money. Because I'll be honest with you, I've had a lot of claims where clients just don't do anything for their mileage reimbursement. They don't provide the information. And of course, you think an adjuster is going to come and tell you like, hey, we owe you money for your mileage. That'll never happen. I haven't seen it happen. Have you?
No, never.
I mean, they
would never fill that form out for the applicant and put it through the system and then ask the payment center to send the applicant a payment. Doesn't happen.
No. I mean, they have a duty to give them the information about mileage reimbursement. It might be hidden in a stack of paperwork and it's in there saying, hey, you are eligible for mileage reimbursement, but they're not going to proactively keep on telling you about it. If you don't do it, if you don't request it, if it doesn't get done, it'll never come up again in your claim if your attorney doesn't tell you about it.
That's right. I mean, at the beginning of your claim, your employer reports it to the insurance company. The insurance company sends you a packet of information. You got something in there. It's called mileage reimbursement. You might be wondering what that is, and that's why you're here at this episode. Or it might be you never received that information, and now it's months later, and now you're learning this about your rights. But we don't know. The adjusters aren't going to just give this to you. So it's not something that you can just hope for. It's something that you got to watch this video and listen to the rest of the discussion in order to advance your knowledge of this. And then at the end, we're going to give you that special trick that's going to really unlock you being able to get this mileage reimbursement for yourself.
Right. And, we all know how expensive gas is these days. And also it's a wear and tear on your car. And it's time that you've taken to go to your doctor's appointment. So Labor Code 4600 basically states that an employer, through their insurance company, is liable for any travel that you have to undertake in order to go to your doctor's appointments. So if you're going to your physical therapy appointments, if you're going to your primary treating physicians, if you don't know what that is, check out our video on that, your PTP. If you're going to those appointments, if you're going to a chiropractor, if you're going to anything that was authorized, that mileage needs to be reimbursed to you. Now, it's very important to understand the process of getting this mileage reimbursed to you because obviously if you don't do the process correctly, it's not going to get done. So Alex, what is the process? What do our viewers need to do if they are right now involved in a workers' compensation claim and they're driving for treatment and they want to get money back for that?
Well, this is part of the special trick, which we're going to share at the end. The first part of it is that you need to have the forms that you're going to use to send to the adjuster.
Right.
Okay. And you're going to need to be documenting everything that all the appointments you're going to. Right. And you need to have the forms. So we've put the forms in the description below, and you can just go down there and you can click on those forms, and the mileage reimbursement rate changes each year, which we're going to discuss how much that rate is. So that's why you got to stick around and watch the rest of the video. But you want to look at those forms. It changes from year to year. That's the first step in the process, is getting a hold of those Department of Workers' Compensation forms, which you should have gotten in the original packet that your adjuster should have sent you to. You may have lost it. You may just be looking at it right now. Those are the forms we're talking about. Changes by year, though. So if your case has been open for years, or you've had mileage in the past, you need to check out the links below.
Yeah. And, it may seem ridiculous, but there are claims that have been open for like 10 years. So this person getting treatment, and obviously if the claim's open, they're continuing to get treatment. They need to know how much the mileage have changed, and they have to make sure that they're using the correct form. So yeah, very good point, Alex. Now, you do get one copy, I think, in the paperwork that the adjuster sends you or the insurance company sends you. You are able to obtain other copies online. You can go to the website for the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board's website. You can find it on there. You can put in the search bar mileage reimbursement. You can pull that. You will have to print it out. So I have had clients, Alex, that I had to physically mail them a mileage request form because they had no access to either the website or a computer or to print it out. So if you don't have access to that, then hopefully you're in the process of getting an attorney or calling us, getting a good attorney. Go ahead and contact us, and we'll send you the mileage form. We can send it to you by mail. What I would recommend, pro tip, make at least 10 copies of that, 10 or 20 copies. Go to your local Kinko when you're out and running errands. Make copies wherever you can so that you have those stored away. At least have one copy that you can always make more copies from so that you can always obtain, mileage reimbursement forms, and you don't have to do it online.
Part of the trick that we're going to share with you is getting these forms to the adjuster later in the video. I think these forms are fillable. You could use just a smartphone. If you have like an Android phone, you could pull it up in the PDF, and you could technically type in all of the data and then sign it electronically. Yeah. And then print it to another PDF. And maybe we should do find an instructional video to link up here on how that's done in general. And then you can check out that video. But you could technically create these forms without actually ever printing them out. Yeah. I mean, you could do an electronic type signature on them, right?
You could. And you might be one of the few people that do that, and it might become a trend because I haven't seen that done, but that's very smart.
Well, for those people who want to try it, I think the majority of people don't want to try to do all that stuff, and that's what George is talking about with, hey, print these forms out, make sure you have extra, because you're going to want to fill these forms out while you're going to the doctor's appointments, not 20 days later when you can't remember the day you went, you never got a return receipt, you can't figure it out. That stuff gets lost over time. So part of the instruction is that you need to make sure you're filling it out as you go. Keep them in your car, right? Or whatever transportation you're using. Right. Maybe it's on you. Maybe.
Yeah. Here's a pro tip, and this is what I tell my clients, and hopefully it works for you and your workers' compensation claim. Have a folder. We don't want to have paperwork, right? We don't want to carry paperwork around with us, but have one folder where you keep the essential information for your claim that you take to your doctor's appointments and things like that. Right. Maybe you write everything down in one piece of paper, your claim number, who your adjuster is, who your attorney is, the information for these people, and you have that in there so you can always give it to a doctor if they need it, or you can always present it to someone who is asking for that information. Now, you could always keep your mileage request forms in there as well, and every time you go to an appointment, you could fill it out for just that one appointment. Now, I will add that it will probably be easier if you separate your mileage sheets into each provider. And by provider, I mean maybe a primary treating physician, and then a physical therapy appointment, and then possibly another type of appointment. That way, anytime you go to the appointment, you can just write it down, and you'll have 3 separate ones, and you can keep them separate and do them better that way. I don't know. What do you think, Alex?
I like that. That's really smart.
Yeah. So every time you go to the doctor, you go to your PTP, you have your PTP mileage form there, and you say, I went on May 26th, 2023 at this time. Here is the address I went to, and then you could put the round trip mileage. Do you want to talk about that, Alex? Because people need to understand it's for the round trip, right?
That's there. It's to the doctor's appointment from wherever you were at the time to back to home base. So, I mean, in general.
And it should be from your home, right? Because you're going to have a really hard time justifying, hey, I was in Big Bear, but I had to go to my doctor's appointment. So I'm driving from Big Bear and then I'm driving back to Big Bear for one doctor's appointment. That might be a little hard to justify, right, Alex?
I mean, you know, this is why this isn't legal advice. It's general information only. I think what you're saying, George, is, hey, go from your home to the doctor, from home to the doctor, from the home to the doctor, because that's what the adjuster's looking for.
Yeah.
But technically, if you're coming from somewhere else, you could prove it potentially.
Right.
But like us as lawyers doing this job, if we're talking about $20, there's not going to be a trial over where you were and whether or not you're going to get that $20. I mean, it's going to be negotiated and it's going to be a done deal. But if you just simply put it from the doctor to home to the doctor, more likely the adjuster is going to see that and not question it.
Right. And since we're talking about questioning things, another thing that might prevent you from getting paid is if you don't do your mileage for 2 years and then all of a sudden you want to come up and provide all the mileage at once. You can do that. I mean, but it's going to be a little bit harder and they're going to maybe take longer trying to verify that you did go to all those appointments. It might just be more of a hassle and more burdens. You probably want to stay on top of this is what we're trying to say. And on that point, we talked a little bit off the record, Alex, about how some people forget to do their mileage. And then once they settle their claim and they've already been presented with the paperwork, they want to talk about mileage. Have you had that happen to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
I think you were talking about this. Well, we were discussing this before. It was maybe before the episode before last, and we were talking. We were brainstorming this topic. What came up is that we have clients who are coming in at the very end. Their case is already settled. There's a lump sum negotiated, and they say, "Hey, I have more mileage that I never got. I never did what you told me to do in the video that you made that we're making right now." Yeah. Because I never knew about it. And maybe you've had a lawyer, maybe you haven't had a lawyer, but you have all the build up stuff at the end. Like maybe you didn't have a lawyer when you were accumulating the mileage and you didn't know about this at all, right? So you get to the end and now you're like, well, I want more from the adjuster than was already been negotiated. But generally speaking, hey, the adjuster is done negotiating at that point for the whole case. Yeah. So doing your mileage now gives you the opportunity to suck more out of the carrier over time. The adjuster's not spending huge lumps of money at once, okay, into getting what you should get, right?
Right.
And I think that's what we were discussing, because I think it was that I've seen cases where clients want to suddenly get their mileage, and that's just not part of the negotiation anymore.
Yeah, because when you sign a compromise and release, a settlement agreement, and we've talked about this before in other videos, you are also initialing and signing off on mileage, reimbursement, self-procured treatment, self-bought medication. You're closing everything out. So once you've done you're done negotiating that, it's very hard to come back and talk to the adjuster and say, oh, we want more for these things that we've already negotiated and have settled out. Does that make sense, Alex?
Absolutely. And hey, and if you want to try to do that before signing the settlement agreement, I recommend that you go get all the forms in the description below and like fill all of those out of all the dates that you went. Because your lawyer can't know and doesn't know when you went certain places, right, George?
Right.
Like if you want to get that, if you're in the final negotiation stage of your claim and you want your mileage done, you want it included, those forms better be like filled out good and quick. And the lawyer is going to be busy with things, and that's your responsibility as the client and the applicant to use these forms that we have for you below. And use a special trick at the end that I'm going to share that's going to help you get paid like you should.
Exactly. So I think my final advice on this, Alex, would be very organized with your miles and turn them in on a continuous basis. Don't wait till the end to try to turn everything in. Don't forget about your miles. Try to do it that way, and you should get paid. And this is nice little extra money aside from your benefits. You might be getting like temporary disability, aside from the permanent disability that you're going to get at the end, aside from your settlement. There's nice money that you can get during your claim. Right. So just be very organized about it. Make sure you turn it in. Make sure that it's clear, and you should get paid on this mileage. And how much is the mileage right now per mile in 2023?
65.5 cents.
65.5 cents for a mile. That's nice. I mean, that's going to help with gas. It's going to help with other stuff. So
I mean, it's more than gas and wear and tear.
Right.
I mean, gas is quite expensive now, but you will notice if you go on the forms, each of the forms for each of the years has a different mileage amount. And that's because each year it kind of goes up. Actually, some years it's gone down. It depends upon the IRS has a mileage reimbursement rate. It's a good rate. It's not a bad rate.
Right.
It covers it. So the special trick at the end that I was going to share with you is how to get this mileage paid. You need to get all of your mileage documented very well. You need to accumulate some of it, and then you need to make sure that that gets to the insurance adjuster with a fax confirmation page or an email trail to that adjuster. And it needs to be done periodically. And if you do that and they don't pay it, then you're building up penalties, which is at the end, which
And
can
interest.
accumulate, and interest.
Yep.
So if your case goes 3 or 4 years and you've been doing this from the beginning, just making sure that the proof that you have some evidence that you saved, that's the trick, is that you need to accumulate that through the claim if you want to get paid good on it.
I like it. Well, there you go. That's the trick. And the treat is going to be a nice check in your hands.
That's right.
Boom.
So that's episode 55 of the Inland Empire Workers' Compensation Lawyer live stream podcast. It's general information only. It's not legal advice. If you need legal advice, dial the injury helpline. It's 844-984-8414.